We're here to discuss the episode Mother's Little Helper. Subscribe to our podcast over at oncepodcast.com so you get every episode automatically downloaded for you. That's at oncepodcast.com. Let me actually turn up my volume before I get that recorded. You're listening to Once, episode 290, Mother's Little Helper, Initial Reactions. Welcome back to another episode of Once, the unofficial podcast for ABC's blah, blah, blah. The final battle! I'm Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Aaron.
Okay. I am right now holding a microphone in my hands. Mic drop. Yeah. We are getting the final battle. I am thrilled. They refer to the final chapter, the end of the story. Makes it really sound like this is the series finale coming up as well, which I know there are mixed emotions about whether the show should or should not go on. Regardless, I'm excited about the thought that they have this planned and that I'm convinced this is our last season. Now, I know there are thoughts and the writers have said ways that the show could go on in future seasons. I don't know what those ways would be, but I really feel like this will be it. They'll end it on a good note with the final battle.
Just like they said in the pilot.
Yes.
The final battle will begin.
This episode, was so good. So good. I don't know who wrote this episode yet. We'll discuss that in our full discussion coming up soon. But these are only our initial reactions. So we're going to be a bit all over the place. And I might drop the mic a few more times in this episode or in the upcoming full discussion. It'll get dented and bruised, but that's okay because this episode was worth it. Wow. So Henry, Emma had savior shakes. Henry is having author apparitions. That's what I'm calling it. You heard it here first.
That's good.
That
was creepy.
Yeah, creepy, freaky, and awesome.
Have we seen a character be taken over with no eyes like that before, or am I thinking of another sci-fi show?
We've seen that happen, I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure we've seen that happen to an author. And that's how the author looks. I think we've seen that happen even to Henry when he was writing. But here he's writing weird symbols, which I am really looking forward to getting the screenshots to study those symbols and what he was writing a bit more. I don't know. It's just awesome. Just awesome. I'm going to say that a lot in this episode. I know it's a misuse of the word awesome. No, you know what? Actually, fearsome. Yes, this episode was fearsome. Yes, it was literally awesome.
I liked seeing Isaac again. I really liked that character. I did think that it was a little peculiar. I mean, I guess it makes sense, go straight to the source. But I feel like my first inkling would have been to ask Rumpelstiltskin. But I guess he was otherwise occupied with trying to... And then I thought he was good again. And then now I don't know again.
Yeah, seeing the author was fantastic. Why go to Rumpel when you could go to the author and we could see Isaac once again, the guy that kind of put everyone on the path that led us to the entire story that is Once Upon a Time. And then we send him off to forgotten character Ellis Island. Or wait, what? No, it's not called Ellis Island. What is the actual island called in New York?
Oh, I have no idea.
Chat room,
Coney?
help me out. No, not Coney Island.
I don't know. I'm Canadian.
What is that called?
Is that not a place in New York, Coney Island?
Well, Coney, I don't know. It's not Coney Island. It's
There's a delay, so they're gonna.
yeah. What is the island in New York?
It's saying Ellis Island
List of islands. List of
when I
small.
googled it. There's a lot.
Ellis Island is the little island where immigrants go.
Okay.
But it's like
Do you know how many islands
New
there are
York
in New
City proper is called an island. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Let me just say it this way then. And
Is it just City Island?
no.
Okay.
And Isaac is going off to forgotten character, New York. Let me say that again. And with Isaac going on, I don't even know how I said this. Let me just say it this way. No, just John, cut it. However you can, however much you need to cut for it to be a clean cut, just cut it. Seeing the author, to me, so much about this episode, seeing things in the beginning, seeing the author, seeing Neverland, and other things we'll talk about. I feel like this episode alone, even if they weren't talking about the final battle at the end, this episode really felt Manhattan Island. Yes, thank you, Matthew Paul. He's the walking dictionary encyclopedia of like all things. So I want to say it, so I'm going to go back and say it. And Isaac is off to forgotten character Manhattan Island. But seeing him and so much else that's in this episode already made me feel like we're headed toward the series finale. And the final battle. Where's my microphone? Here it is. Mic drop. I know. I'm going to go on about the final battle because it's been my thing since season 1.
I've been pretty hung up on that since season 1 as well. I think I've mentioned it multiple times in the podcast that they're not sticking to the pilot, and that always kind of bugged me. And I'm glad that they're at least pulling the term out, even if it's only the final battle if everybody dies. Right? Because otherwise there's going to keep being battles, and thus it's not the final.
Or all the bad guys die, or realize that they were doing bad things and stop doing it. So there's something to discuss. Gideon, all this time, has been controlled by the Black Fairy. That's cool. Didn't see that coming. So he's not necessarily a bad guy. Right?
Yes. Sorry. I forgot to close my window. I'm going to do that now. I didn't want to leave when you were talking because I wouldn't have known what you were saying.
John, here's another edit for you. Just completely remove the Manhattan thing. Go back to that. Make it a clean cut.
Sorry. And I can jump in now because I remember what you just said.
Okay.
I was really glad to see that Gideon's heart is not in his chest because, like you said, it doesn't make him a bad guy now. And from what we saw in the flashbacks, he wasn't really bad ever, despite her every effort to try and make him bad, which didn't seem like a lot of effort, to be honest. But those flashbacks were interesting.
Yeah, the exact flashback that he described previously about reading the book, the boy being taken away, and he couldn't do anything to stop it, or wouldn't do anything to stop it because he was a coward.
Yeah, using that term was likely intentional on her part. I mean, he wouldn't know his dad's history, but that's what Rumpelstiltskin got called to, which kind of was the catalyst for a lot of what's happened in the show.
And also of things, a lot happened in this episode, but it didn't feel like it was rushed or too crammed. I felt like they they spent enough time in the right places with this episode. And one of those really cool places was getting to see Neverland. By the way, Blackbeard too. Really cool to see Blackbeard. But seeing Neverland, that's awesome. It's like they're going to everywhere we've ever been before, almost. And we're getting to see it again.
I have to say, watching that scene, I was like, are they back in the Enchanted Forest? And then as soon as I heard the Lost Boys, I was like, it's Neverland. And all I could think was, rip.
Yep. So
Do you
Hook,
think we'll see him? What happened to him? I forget.
he's probably grown up. Well, he came back to Storybrooke, so he's not in Neverland. Some of the Lost Boys did stay, but most of them, I think, did leave with everyone else and join the school. Sorry, there's just so much on my mind with this episode. I'm having trouble.
Say something about Hook.
Oh yeah. So now, how is Hook going to get off Neverland? I would imagine maybe it's going to be something to do with the shadow, or a shadow, someone's shadow. Maybe Pan's shadow is still there, or maybe the shadow character is still there, who was previously the sole inhabitant of Neverland. Or maybe he'll find things that were left by Neil when Neil was able to escape from Neverland. Whatever the case, it's probably going to be Pan's something that enables him to leave Neverland. But as long as Gideon has the tears, he can't get back to Enchanted Forest, supposedly. But now that the Black Fairy is in town, is there any reason really to keep Hook away from Emma? Unless it's that during the final battle, we're going to see everyone fighting. Emma's there fighting for the good, fighting against whoever is on the bad side at that point. And Hook just then portals into Storybrooke, comes into town, and Emma gets to see that one last look, and then she sacrifices herself and dies.
You've always said that you think Emma's going to die at the end of the series, haven't you?
For a long time, yeah. I think since season 1, when the word savior started being used, we raised that point, and so did several of our listeners, that biblically, the idea of savior is sacrificing for others, sacrificing for something.
And we've seen, the first moment that I remember, and I think I just mentioned this episode last week, but the first moment I remember Emma actually, literally sacrificing herself. It just so happens that her heart couldn't be taken, was when she jumped in front of Snow, sacrificing her own life when Cora was trying to take Snow's heart. And I think that was kind of the moment that I realized that she might not make it through the show. Because she does have that selflessness in her. And I do have to say that if they are going to fight a final battle right now, like in the rest of this season, evil is picking a very good time to bring this battle to them, because they're down Hook. They're kind of down Rumple and Belle because of the conflict with Gideon. They have no Blue Fairy, and they only have one of the Charmings, whichever one they choose. And apparently Henry now is going to be having, what did you call it?
Author apparitions.
Author apparitions. So they've pretty much got Emma and Regina and one of the Charmings, and that's kind of it. Well, and everyone else who lives in the town, I guess, but magic-wise.
And who would be the villain? See, Rumple is simply wanting to protect his son, and that's why he made that threat against Emma, which, man, laying it down there like that. But he just wants to protect his son, and Gideon is not actually evil. He's being controlled by the Black Fairy. Rumple wants to defeat the Black Fairy as well, and as Rumple said, which was really cool to learn, the Black Fairy is the origin of, did they say the dark curse as well as the dark one magic?
They said the dark curse tonight, which I was a little bit annoyed about, but that's just because it's I feel like it's inconsistent with what we know about the dark curse, but I could be forgetting details
Well,
from
what we
years
know
ago.
is that Rumpel found it. Remember, there were in the Chernobog, and he sent the witches, the queens of darkness, to go get the dark curse for him. And that was basically the recipe card for him. And he mixed everything together. But I think somewhere along the way, the word discovered was used, or maybe we used the word discovered. But I thought they also said that the Black Fairy was responsible for the Dark One magic, but Matthew Paul in the chat room is saying she didn't create the Dark One magic. I thought something about what Rumpel said, like that gave you your power or something. We'll dig into this in more depth in our upcoming full discussion. Definitely send us your feedback on this episode, your theories. So much to talk about with this episode. Oh, it's going to be good.
So kind of an idea or a random theory that just came to me. I'm just thinking of the whole rule about that magic can't really be destroyed. It can only change in form.
Mm-hmm.
If they're trying to destroy the dark fairy, specifically if she's like the origin of all darkness, which like they haven't used those words, but it sounds like they're maybe pitching that she's at least a major player in the darkness. Emma is kind of the total opposite of that. And they kind of did this with Emma and Lily, but greatest potential for good and greatest potential for darkness. But what if they end up kind of having to neutralize each other? Because right now it's very black and white. And she even made a comment about people always seeing it in black and white. She said, don't listen to them. They only see the world in black and white. But to me, that's the only way with the rules that they've established that they could actually get rid of the Black Fairy is to somehow neutralize her power, which could cost both of them their lives, in theory.
Or their magic. Like Emma sacrifices, it would be led up like this. We would all think she's sacrificing her life and completely dying, but no, she's just sacrificing her magic, her savior status, and she's becoming normal after that. Kind of like we saw all the darkness sucked out of Rumpel, we might see all the light magic sucked out of Emma, and then she would be a regular person. But we would be led to think she just died and then realize, no, she emerges from the smoke victorious and still alive.
Very similar to, totally going to spoil the end of Harry Potter if you haven't seen it or read it in the last 2 decades. Don't listen anymore. Kind of like when Harry Potter, everybody thought he was sacrificing himself, but really he was just going to kill the Horcrux that was inside of him.
Yeah.
And then again, he rose. There were a couple things that reminded me of Harry Potter today. So the giant spider, the baby kind of being, gazed at like he's going to be the savior of everything. When they saw Gideon.
The kids were gazing at him?
No, like when the dark fairy brought him in, It reminded me a lot of, kind of the opposite because she's evil, but of Harry Potter when they dropped him off and they knew he was, bound for greatness.
Well, you know who reminds me of people we can gaze on because they are bound for greatness. They have greatness in them and they share it with us. You know who that is? It's our heroes for this episode of the podcast. And we are very grateful for our amazing heroes. We couldn't do this podcast without you. So special thanks to Lisa Slack, Lisa R., and we've got a couple new heroes, Heather Peckfelder and Trainer James. Thank you very much for your wonderful support of the podcast and generous and kindness. And you are like that wonderful baby that comes into the dark, scary minds and you bring hope to the Temple of Doom. You shed light in the darkness. You help support the podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting the podcast. We could not do this without your help. Now, if you're listening to this right now and you haven't gotten to be a hero yet to the podcast, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero to check out your options. Support the podcast with whatever you feel it's worth to you, whether that's $1 a month, $10 a month, 20, 30, 50, 100, whatever it is worth to you. Think about the enjoyment we bring to you and to the show. Give that back. That's my suggestion. I don't want to put it like that. Think of whatever that value is that we bring to you, and that's what you could consider bringing back to the podcast. So go to oncepodcast.com/hero, and thank you for your support. What else to talk about? And my mind is just awash with everything.
Yeah, I'm just reviewing. I did put a little all caps note at the bottom there. You could maybe use that on Wednesday.
Well, I talked about that at the beginning. What are we missing?
You know, at the very bottom of mine.
Yeah. Oh.
Was it not there before?
I read the whole note. No, I don't want to think about that. But where'd to go?
Probably have more to say a little bit about the final battle idea, if we could somehow get back to that.
There's something on the tip of my mind to cover. This is making for riveting content right now. I know it. And this is all edited out in the podcast version. That's why we tell you, subscribe to the podcast. Then you don't get all this junk. But you get to see us mess up. Okay, I know it. One of the things that stood out to me in this episode is that there are many things. Let me say that again. An odd thing that stood out to me in this episode was that the Black Fairy referred to eons going on in the Dark Realm. And so it makes me wonder, how old is Gideon really? How long has all of this torture been going on? We think and she even said 28 years old, or someone said 28 years old, which 28, that's a once upon a time number. Emma was 28 when she became the savior. I think Snow White was 28 when she gave birth to Emma. The curse obviously lasted for 28 years because that's how Emma was born on day one of the curse. She came back on her 28th birthday. A lot of other 28s, I think, in the show, maybe. So they're celebrating his 28th birthday, but that kind of makes me feel like either she's being sarcastic, as WWO is suggesting in the chat room, or time works completely crazily differently in... Let me say that differently. Or time works completely differently inside of the Dark Realm. Which we know time works differently. We just don't know how differently.
I would say it would be like her statement of eons would be accurate if how many days, like Gideon's only been gone. About the end of the story, okay?
Sorry. Yeah. I started typing and I had the soundboard selected.
So Gideon's only been gone days, or maybe a week or two by Storybrooke standards. And if 28 years has passed in days or a week in the Dark Realm, then the, hundreds of years since Rumpelstiltskin was a child would definitely be considered eons if that's how differently the time moves there.
Well, maybe this is one of those things, kind of like when they used the word lousy in season 2, and I gave a stink about that. Well, I just looked up the definition for eon, and one of the definitions is an indefinitely long period of time or age. So eons could be almost 30 years. An indefinitely long period of time. And what makes a long period of time? Well, it's very relative. So, okay. So maybe I'm reading too much into a little statement there. It's probably like her way of saying, like, forever ago, Gideon.
It's exactly what she sounds like.
I'm really excited about this final battle thing. I keep bringing it back to the final battle.
There were a couple of things that, like, I got really excited when I first heard that. And then as my logic brain started clicking in, I realized, if Henry's like one storybook has covered everything we know of Once Upon a Time so far, all of those years, all of those flashbacks, everything, then the final chapter could be quite long. It could be an entire another season, really. It could be however long they make it. I would really like to see the final battle be contained within the rest of this season.
Yeah.
But we don't know really how long those chapters are. Plus, isn't there an entire building of blank books? That's what I don't understand about why Isaac is being all, no one wants to see the end, like the final battle, which, like I said, if it's truly the final battle, I think that means everybody dies.
And look back to season 1, and when Rumpelstiltskin first said those infamous words, he said, "The final battle will begin." So yes, that could mean that we get a season 7. But if season 7 is all one epic final battle, that could be really cool. A theory that Jacqueline and Matthew Paul both share is that if we get a 7th season, it would be only a half season, and they would then have 11 or so episodes to wrap up the story and do this final battle thing. And I could see that happening as well, because we really don't know. ABC has not yet announced whether Once Upon a Time is renewed. We might find out this very week. It's coming up to time that we would normally find out by now, I believe. But we don't know.
And just to be clear, in my opinion, based on the pilot, the final battle has to include bringing back the happy endings.
Yes.
That's what the show is all about. Even though they have significantly, it seems, strayed from that at times. If they're bringing it back to the final battle, I hope they're bringing it back to the happy endings. Because that is, we want to see all of these characters have happy endings. Maybe not Emma, because like you said, she might die. But like Snow and Charming need to not be in a sleeping curse and need to perhaps be back in their kingdom. And, there's things that need to happen for it to really do the show justice. And the themes of the show that we all fell in love with in season 1, I would really love if they do have another season that they do those things justice.
I really believe that the final scene of Once Upon a Time will be Henry writing, and they lived happily ever after, and closing the book. I'm confident that's going to be the final scene of Once Upon a Time.
That would be a perfect ending to this show.
And it means it would have to be true, too, that they somehow lived happily ever after, which means defeating these extremely dark characters and the villains and the final battle being won. So there's a lot of good, cool stuff coming. I'm really, really excited. This was a fantastic episode. I love this episode. So make sure you send us your theories. I know you might want to also say how much you loved this episode as well. But if you have theories about this episode, about the final battle, about what's going on, about how Hook is going to come back, about Gideon, about the Black Fairy, who is now in Storybrooke. We didn't even mention that, but that sets up all kinds of awesome battles and things to happen. But if you have some theories about this, then please send those theories to us. Go to the website at oncepodcast.com/290. That's the show notes for this episode. And our contact information is in there. Or if you're listening on a podcast app on your mobile device, usually if you tap on or swipe in some direction over the cover art, or maybe just scroll around in some way, but you'll probably see a link there that you can tap on for our contact information, for our phone number to leave a voicemail, to send a voice message through the website, or to email us through your own email program. But however you can, we'd love to have your feedback and theories, as I feel like we are wrapping up the series completely. And it looks like it could be an awesome ending with the final battle coming. Oh, I'm so happy about that. But in the meantime, we'd love for you to connect with us on Twitter at Once Podcast. And I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter at the Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Erin on Twitter at Erin J. Cruz.
We'll be back for our full discussions on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time over at oncepodcast.com/live. And Once Upon a Time will air on Sunday, April 16th, Easter Sunday. So we hope you'll join us for the full discussion and much more. And until next time, I am messing up my timing. John just cut out where I repeated the upcoming full discussion because I was buying time, which I didn't need to buy. Once Upon a Time will be back on Sunday. No, not back. Once Upon a Time will still air on Sunday, April 16th, which is Easter Sunday. So go ahead and plan for that and join us for the podcast. And until next time, such powerful toys are not meant for such disobedient boys. And thanks for listening. Once Podcast is a proud member of Noodle.mx Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at Noodle.mx. Big thanks to our heroes for supporting this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to be a hero too, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero. And thank you for your support. Mic drop.
Did you just drop the mic again?
No, I do want to redo my outro because I rushed it. So from John, from just after Erin gave her thing, I'll say this. Once Upon a Time is airing on Sunday, April 16th, which is Easter Sunday. So we hope you'll join us for our initial reactions. Now, let me say it this way. Sorry, guys, my brain is all over the place. Once Upon a Time will be airing on Sunday, April 16th, which is Easter Sunday, so keep that in mind with your plans. And remember, such powerful toys are not meant for such disobedient boys. And thanks for listening. Let me say it differently again. So this is just the outro, or the closing words. And until next time, remember, such powerful toys are not meant for such disobedient boys. And thanks for listening. Okay, that's the one. I'm stopping the recording now. That was a good episode.
It was good.
I am sorry to John that it's going to take more work to edit our podcast because of my being all over the place mentally. But it's for a good cause. Because it was a good episode. Although I hope it's not like by Wednesday after rewatching it, I'm going to be like, meh.
Disappointed.
Worst episode ever. No, I'm not going to be that way. They mentioned the final battle. That just instantly shoots an episode up near the top.
Is it this? Like, they have been doing a lot of throwbacks to the pilot this whole season. Right?
Yeah. And especially this, well, pilot, previous seasons.
Oh, and I forgot. Well, I guess you guys will talk about it on Wednesday. They mentioned Arendelle in this episode too. So
yeah.
I wonder if we're going to go there next week because we've been in a different world that we've been in before.
I really doubt it.
You know what I mean? Like, we've been now in Agrabah, the Enchanted Forest, and Neverland, like in the last 3 episodes. 2 episodes. Best of the season so far, Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
Paul said.
Yeah, definitely. Best episode in a while.
I liked the one when they got put under the sleeping curse.
Yeah, that's true. That was a really good one.
I'm glad you didn't tell me you were going to do that at the beginning because it made it that much more, um, you know, unexpected.
Blackbeard had mentioned Arendelle. Either Blackbeard or Hook. But
Yeah, that he lost it in Arendelle or something.
yeah, during the frozen season, um, Hook got this. I forget how the Jolly Roger has changed hands so many times.
Oh, we have feedback already, Daniel.
I saw that. Not positive feedback, but it's.
Oh.
Love your podcast. You all are awesome. Okay, end of email. I'll stop it right there.
I hadn't read that yet, so I assumed that it was about tonight's episode.
No. All right. Everyone, thank you very much for joining us for this episode. We'll be back. Please join us as well. Send us your feedback, your theories, and everything, like I said, in the podcast. Thanks for sticking around for the rough recording of this episode, but the podcast recording will be much better, which you probably don't listen to if you're watching this live or watching this on YouTube, because you just heard everything that we said in the Initial Reactions podcast. If you don't like hearing it rough like this, then just subscribe to the podcast. Then you get to hear the nicely edited version. Thanks to John from Audio Editing Solutions. So until Wednesday, thank you and good night.